So to open this video up, I'm going to be pretty blunt with you. As a content creator, I look up some pretty weird stuff. Not necessarily this type of weird stuff, but for example, let's take these fine videos right here. Let me go ahead and give you a brief overview of the search history that happened during the many hours of scripting these out. Is it illegal to burn people alive? Is it a war crime to sacrifice civilians to God? What is the punishment for war criminals? Do they get life sentences? Do they get the death penalty? Am I a war criminal? Now, I'm not an FBI agent, or at least that's what I'm supposed to tell you, but in a hypothetical situation that I was and I saw somebody searching this up for 10 hours straight, my initial response would probably be the exterminatus. But do you know what? That's why today I'm proud to announce that I have a special link for NordVPN. So chances are if you're on this channel, you probably play video games. If you don't, how are you here? But with NordVPN, you can go to 60 different countries with the press of a button. Or at least that's what your computer thinks because it's a dumb computer and not a real person. With over 5,200 servers in 60 countries, you can reap many benefits such as buying games that might not be available where you live, or buying games with discounts in other regions, or when your friends... Well, in a hypothetical scenario where you have friends and they're playing a game that's geographically restricted, now you can play with them without having to worry about traversing the Pacific Ocean and drowning. If wielding this power is something that you too desire, go to the link in the description or pinned comment to get a plan with huge discounts. It's a great way to support the channel while also purchasing a great product. Now onto your regularly scheduled programming. Zoo Tycoon is a Microsoft Studios game from 2001 where you, oddly enough, get to run a zoo. Raise animals, keep them happy, keep your guests happy, make big money, rinse and repeat. That's the general gameplay loop of this game, but what if you wanted to add in that little chemical X and turn your zoo into a barren wasteland of abandoned hope and despair? I'm Davey Gunface, and today I'm here to ask and answer a question that no one has probably ever thought to themselves. Can you beat Zoo Tycoon as a genocidal monster? Firstly, for our zoo, which we aptly named Genocide Zoo, we chose the large valley map because that gives us more space to build a bigger zoo. And most of the entrance's terrain is relatively flat, so we don't have to worry about shaping the geography for a very long time. I decided to start with $50,000, which apparently makes it intermediate difficulty. The amount of money that you start with doesn't really impact much at all. It just makes the start a little bit slower and makes you spend your money a bit more economically, but it is worth noting. The first thing I did was painstakingly craft this beautiful central area with various shops and decorations. Most of this would be replaced almost immediately with better and grander buildings, but I digress. The first exhibit I decided to construct was for lions. Their needs are pretty basic, typically only needing a few rocks, trees, and toys to make them very happy cats. But do you know what's better than being happy? Being insatiably horny. Every time the lions have a cub, I get to sell off their children for a fairly lucrative price. This is one of the better ways to make money in this game, but usually comes at the trade-off of requiring bigger or more specific habitats. The lions are mostly exempt from this, but their cubs aren't the most expensive in the world, so it's still fairly even. The next exhibit was for 2 grizzly bears. I didn't want to build another big exhibit quite yet, so I went for an animal that prefers to be mostly alone. Once I got this set up, I unlocked a few more buildings, including a hot dog stand and a drink stand that's a bit more profitable than the basic vending machines. Then I had to hire a few employees to make sure any lions weren't starving to death and that my zoo wasn't a glorified landfill. But they're pretty cheap hires. This fucking trooper works for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every month of every year for $300 a month. I don't know if Microsoft is trying to tell us that they condone slavery, but there's a few hints here. A few months passed and my profits were fairly minimal until I got a cash reward for being a pretty okay zoo. With this newfound money, I bought 2 new exhibits. One for saltwater crocodiles and one for American bison. As someone who has the unfortunate trait of living in Kansas, I knew that the bison weren't going to need a whole lot, but holy fucking shit, this is frugal even for me. With a grand total of 6 squares of fresh water and some shelters, the exhibit was complete. Cool. I built another small hub for shops for the guests to visit and give me money, and a bunch of cool free stuff like aviaries and stables. I almost hate to say it, but this is shaping up to be a pretty cool zoo. I almost feel bad knowing what will eventually happen to these poor souls. Almost. But I got another reward for showing basic empathy towards animals, and this is where the zoo started snowballing into popularity. With a constant DeviantArt level expansion and a huge budget into marketing, I was starting to build a pretty good zoo. Just like most companies when they realize they're starting to make insane profits, I fired most of my staff for more profits. How am I supposed to live with myself when I only have 15 yachts instead of 17? We'll just send out a newsletter telling us that we love our employees and everybody will forget it within a week. With this newfound profit on profit, I bought 2 pretty incredible animals. Penguins and sea lions. Penguins are penguins, and sea lions are seals. And seals are just pretty fucking incredible animals overall. I absolutely haven't been binge watching baby seal videos. No sir, that wouldn't be manly. I'm the epitome of all things testosterone filled. Grr. Then there are some more boring animals that I bought. Wildebeest, a moose, an anteater, and some flamingos. I probably just insulted some dude's favorite animal this sentence, but to be fair, if your favorite animal is an anteater, you probably deserve to get bullied. Even if it's just a passive-aggressive remark from a monotone YouTuber. You probably deserve much worse, to be entirely honest. What the fuck is wrong with you? After this, our zoo had enough exhibits where it could focus less on further building exhibits, but rather building more stands, decorations, and shops to maximize profit for the oncoming storm. My animal and guest happiness was hovering around 93 to 96% for a while, but at this point it's a sad day if I hit even 97% happiness on either. Once my guests and animals were happy in their combined existence in a utopia, that's when the plan had come to fruition. I made the zoo entrance free until I hit 1,000 guests, which is the guest limit on the original Zoo Tycoon. And once they came, it was time for the apocalypse to dawn upon this pitiful world. I blocked off the zoo entrance with restrooms, then blocked it off again with pizzerias, then surrounded that with a small barrier of water. For whatever reason, guests won't actually swim throughout the water, meaning that this barrier is entirely impenetrable. With the Great Wall of Pizzeria constructed, I used Zawarudo and sold absolutely everything in my zoo, except for the animals. Every fence, every road, every shop, and every utility was removed forevermore. This gave me roughly $116,000 that I then invested into many ferocious creatures. All over the map, I tactfully placed many beasts capable of easily slaughtering humans, like lions, gorillas, crocodiles, bears, and penguins. Yeah, I just put down 4 penguins in a corner hoping that they would run off to the other side of the map and survive the coming onslaught. I hate to spoil the video, but they weren't fit for this world and died out incredibly quickly. I then increased the zoo's admission to $100 per visitor just in case any family tried to get through the Great Wall of Italy, and then I made all the guests wear orange shirts so this could, somehow, constitute as a genocide. Then, and only then, did the passage of time get to resume as it normally would. Almost fucking immediately, the National Organization of Zoos received numerous complaints about the living conditions of animals in our zoo, and were unable to purchase any more animals until their living conditions were more suitable. I guess we have an imposter among us reporting Genocide Zoo to the authorities for encouraging genocide. In almost every circumstance, I would get my lawyers to combat this blatantly preposterous claim since it's obviously hyperbole and isn't at all accurate to our current workplace culture. But for one reason or another, that option isn't in this game, so, yeah. Soon after, I came to a realization. The guests can't die. This originally brought me great sorrow since I can't kill them, hence I failed the challenge. And then I came to another realization. It dawned on me. These people get to suffer forever. They can't ever sleep, they can't ever eat, they can't relax or rest, and they have to constantly run from the legion of wild animals chasing them down at every second of every day for all eternity. The guests' happiness was quickly reduced to 0. The animals' happiness was also quickly reduced to 0. But me? I felt nothing but hatred. There are 37.2 trillion cells in my body, and if the word hate was painfully engraved on each nanoangstrom of those thousands of billions of cells, it would not equal 1/1,000,000th of the hate I feel for this zoo at this micro instant. Unfortunately, 7 guests were given the sweet release of death, but the remaining 993 were powerless to fight against me, only capable to struggle against their inevitable descent into mind-shattering insanity in vain. Even the animals were soon collapsed into insanity, constantly attempting to merge into one being to try and combat the eternal struggle that was thrust upon them. But it's useless. I am this realm's god, and as such, I'll never allow them to get to experience that sweet release. Animals, humans, despite their differences, they get to share one characteristic throughout the rest of eternity. They may all have mouths, but all they can ever hope to do in my infinite domain of despair is scream.